Hey everybody, it's Rick Lugash here at Optimal Wellness Labs, and every once in a while we find this amazing company with an amazing product that fits right into where a lot of our customers are and a lot of things that many of us are struggling with. And I know that we have a lot of folks in our Optimal Wellness family that are struggling with blood pressure issues, and we have come across a product that I just could not wait to expose everybody to. So with me here today is my friend, Mr. Steve Wood, who is the CEO and founder of Zona Health. Say hello, Steve, to everybody.
Hello, Steve. Rick, thank you for having me on, and I look forward to this. I'm sort of excited about getting to talk with you.
Yeah, so this is one of those products that's actually a real physical product. It's actually been endorsed by most of the big establishment in the medical community, the American Heart Association, the Mayo Clinic, the Harvard Heart Letter. This is a product that, a physical product that you've been involved in the research and the evolution of for, I think, probably 20 years now. And you've had some real successes with the FDA, and we want to talk about all that today. So we're going to talk about the Zona Health product. It's actually the Zona Plus, and this actually is a physical product that you hold in your hand, and it has a gripping mechanism, and it's actually been, your studies indicate, reducing your blood pressure. So we're talking about, wow, that's awesome. I know we're going to talk all about it, but basically it's 12 minutes a day, 5 days a week. Tell us a little bit about the background of this and the evolution of the Zona Plus.
Well, what happened with this is the Air Force was doing some research trying to get fighter pilots to be able to turn under extreme G-forces. So Dr. Ron Wiley had them in a centrifuge circling round and around. A couple of the pilots were pre-hypertensive. When he went back to the labs and started analyzing the data, what he found ultimately was that a special form of isometric exercise caused dramatic drops in blood pressure. So then he spent the next decades trying to optimize this. And the result of that ultimately was a sort of a kludgy Germanic product that you couldn't produce very well, but you could do in a lab. And that product, he started working with it. And in my experience, you don't hear what comes out of the lab, but what came out of the lab in this case is his buddy took it to Oshkosh, and you and I are pilots.
Yeah.
And so Oshkosh is a fly-in for the Experimental Aviation Association. And so I've flown in once. Anyway, Oshkosh is cool. There's hundreds of thousands of people. And this Dr. Wiley and his buddy Mike had a little booth. And in the booth, wandering by, came Paul Harvey. And so Paul Harvey comes wandering by, looks at it, asks some questions. He's a pretty savvy guy in medical. And so I knew nothing about this at this time, but that's what happened. I found out later that my blood pressure, when I went in for my flight physical, so I'm going in and I'm an athlete, I'm in decent shape, I eat well, I exercise, and the doctor tells me your blood pressure is going up. If you can't control it, I'm going to have to put you on medications. So I said, in my mind, I don't want to go on medications. So I started looking for an alternative. Ultimately tracking down on the internet a Paul Harvey segment that said there's this company out of Ohio that's come up with a miracle device that may replace high blood pressure treatment because it's amazing. So I tried to track the company down. I finally got a hold of one of the guys. I said, what's going on? He says, well, we'll have to make one for you. Oh. So anyway, I spent the next 12 weeks waiting for them to make one. They did, sent it out to me. I was a little nervous. It was expensive. But Mike said, put it on your credit card if you can dispute the charges if I'm lying to you. But I thought, I'll take the chance because I don't want to take drugs. It came out 12 weeks later. It came to me. I started using it. At 4 weeks, I called him and said, I want to return and get my money back. It's done nothing for me. And Mike said, no, hold on a second. He says it takes most people 4 to 8 weeks to see results. But when you do, they're dramatic. I waited 1 more week, and my blood pressure dropped 27 points systolic and 20 diastolic. Off the charts, Rick.
Wow.
And the nice thing about it was during those 12 weeks running up to it, I went into my doctor every Friday and had him take my blood pressure. So I'd have a baseline of what was going on. So I had a baseline, and I went in and had him take it afterwards. And my doctor looked at me and he says, "What'd you do?" Now my flight physician carries the Zona Plus.
Wow, that's amazing. And so you subsequently, got involved with them, and you've taken this whole thing to the next level, haven't you?
Well, and yes, that's correct, Rick. What happened was I called Mike up. My brother's in medical, been in it a long time, successful. And he told me I was buying snake oil. And then once it worked, he says, "Oh, get the marketing rights." And so I called up Mike. I said, "Mike, why isn't this everywhere, and why doesn't everybody know about it?" He says, "We don't know how to market. We don't have any money." I said, "I think I can fix that for you." Ultimately, we bought the product from Mike and his partner, and we created Zona Health. We redesigned it so you could actually get it out to people at a decent price. And then we started doing the publications. And at the time, there was one sort of half-baked independent publication. And we started doing them. We now have more than 25 independent publications, including the Harvard Heart Letter, the Mayo Clinic Proceedings, the Mayo Clinic Newsletter, okay, and the American Heart Association saying you can expect to see significant drops in blood pressure with the Zona Plus.
Wow. So let's for the folks that are listening that really want to understand the nuance and the science behind how this works. First of all, show us this device again so we can get a sense of what this looks like.
Let's see if I can get it up here where you can see it.
So what actually happened in that chamber that with the way somebody was moving their body around at extreme forces that caused their blood pressure to go on? So basically what I'm asking you is what's the science behind it? What's actually physiologically going on? Yeah, so you actually put your hand on the device, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So if I get that right, you put your hand around the device and you squeeze it once as hard as you can for a couple seconds. It then tells you to rest and it moves over to the other hand. And the angles are going to be all right, but you squeeze as hard as you can for just a flash.
Right.
It then sets a custom protocol for you for today because your blood pressure goes up and down. Your physiological responses go up and down every day, even different times during the day. Okay? And what Dr. Wiley figured, and I'm doing an exercise now, what Dr. Wiley figured was he figured that what you had to do, and I won't go through it all now, but what he figured you had to do was you had to stress certain things for certain periods of time. And if you stress them for certain periods of time at certain levels,
right,
you got different responses.
Okay.
So what the pilots were doing was they were holding a steel rod as hard as they could
on a stick
for as long as they could. The problem with that is if you have any health problems, it'll kill you. An aneurysm, something like that, it can kill you. And medical professionals will say isometric exercise done to extreme is very dangerous. If you already have real high blood pressure, you shouldn't get crazy about lifting weights, for example. It's not good for you. So what Wiley had to do is he had to find this niche, not too low where you didn't get a response, and not too high so it wasn't safe. And ultimately, that niche was very small, but he found a way to just multiply the effects.
Yeah, so for somebody who's wondering, well, can't I just use a tennis ball? This is the response to that. Because the device is going to tell you exactly how hard to be pressing.
And you have to depress as hard as you can, number one, and then take a percentage of that for a specific amount of time. So with a tennis ball, I guess if you had calibrated tennis balls, I don't know how you do that, but if you had a calibrated tennis ball thing, you could somehow replicate this.
Right.
But what happens is we're not talking an in and out movement of the hand. We're talking a steady state squeeze at a certain pressure.
Sure.
It's actually very technical and this little tiny window that makes a response.
So tell us so you mentioned the protocol. So tell us a little bit about that. So it registers, it registers on the device, and then what is the feedback mechanism that it gives out to you?
Yeah, so there's two feedback mechanisms that it gives out to you. One, on the screen, it tells you to hold more or less or just stay stable. Okay. If you go too much either way, it makes a noise. Too high means you've got too much pressure. Lower tone means a lower pressure. And so there's feedback on that. You can sort of see that. I'll get it set up while we're talking. But you have to have, we have both visual and audio feedback.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm setting it back up so I can show you an over-under.
and then what is you mentioned that there's a protocol.
Oh, yeah.
Delivers out for you.
So you do those two high-intensity squeezes. So there's it'll tell you hold. You can maybe see that right there.
Got it.
Okay. And you can't hear anything because there's no noise. But if I let it down, you hear that? You can hear the tone. I don't know if you hear it. Okay. Or if you go over a different tone,
yeah,
and it tells you to do it less. And it turns colors as well. So you know that's red, no, that's bad.
Right.
Or this way, red, it's bad. So you want it right in the middle. Right there. Now, that protocol is you do this for 2 minutes on your right hand. You wait, rest for a minute. You do it 2 minutes on your left hand. You rest for a minute. Back to your right hand for 2 minutes. Rest a minute. Left hand, and you're done. So twice on each hand, 2 minutes in that slot. And the average person is going to, according to the Journal of Hypertension, is going to see somewhere between 15 and 25 millimeter drops systolic.
Okay. So it's not a device so much like a thermometer, which just registers the temperature. This device kind of like a thermostat. It actually changes your blood pressure versus just registering it on a device. So on a blood pressure, typical blood pressure meter, it's just registering. It's actually not changing your blood pressure as a whole.
Right. So what this device does is cause physiological changes in the body.
Yeah.
So what we're doing is we're stressing the endothelium, the liner of the artery. We're stressing that. We're causing an upregulation in nitric oxide production. We're actually slightly raising your blood pressure while you do the exercise. Okay? No more than stepping up 2 or 3 steps. But nevertheless, we're slightly raising it. And then we're causing physiological changes. And your artery will be larger and more flexible after 6 to 8 weeks of using this. Your resistance vessels, where they come together, the arteries and the veins come together, they actually become much more flexible, able to handle things better. We're changing the autonomic nervous system, which is your electrical impulse in effect, that automatic portion of what you do. We're changing that. And the reason we're changing that is so that your set point goes from sympathetic, which means you're ready to be twitchy, flight, like a scared bird.
Yeah.
Okay? We're changing from there to parasympathetic. And the doctors can measure this inside of 30 seconds. This device changes you set point from one to the other. So it's
really fascinating. So tell us what kind of success, so just given your overall customer base, what successes have you seen? And then after that, who's this product for specifically?
Okay. Good question, Rick. And so successes in clinicals, we have 100% significant drops in blood pressure in clinicals. Wow. It's 100%. Some in the real world, you and I both know it doesn't work that way. So we tell people 93% because we want to leave a window open. Some people don't want it. In fact, most of our returns, because we guarantee it, most of our returns are people that never even open the box.
Yeah.
They got it and then they decided they didn't want to do anything. Okay, that's fine. Send it back. But realistically, 93% or more succeed with this at significant drops. We've had reports, I can't tell you, from around the world, we've had staggering reports. One that doesn't relate to blood pressure, but tells you sort of how the whole body hooks together. It's not directly to blood pressure. We had a guy in Oregon order one of these devices. He got it. He started using it. He called me back 5 weeks later, and he said, it hasn't helped my blood pressure at all. And I was sort of shocked. I said, well, no problem. Send it back. And he says, oh, no, you couldn't pry this out of my dead fingers. I said, why? He says, I've had head pain for years, He says, and I was planning on killing myself this year.
Wow.
He had a time and a place. He says, it's gone.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, no, he's on his way. He says, my head pain's gone, and I can live a life. He says, you're never getting this back.
Wow. So this is for the chronic pain market?
You know, I don't know enough about that. That's not science for me.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say is, I imagine his head had something vascular going on. Would be my guess. Okay, there was something related to the flexibility or the blood pressure, or I don't know what the cause was. He had but we don't associate head pain with blood pressure.
Sure.
So that was one. Over in Germany, the president of the German Heart Association was a cardiologist. He started using the device. He laughed at me when I brought it there, and he and his wife used it. And I now have a recording of him telling a roundtable on hypertension in Germany. He's telling them, he says, I used this, I didn't think it'd work, but he says, now I'm off 2 of my medications, my wife's off 1.5 of her medications, and my blood pressure is normal.
That's amazing.
We get stories like that regularly.
So when we talk about who the product's for, it's really for people that are struggling, that have been on medications for a while, right? That are looking for a natural treatment for blood pressure. So
there's a significant portion of the world that won't take any medication for high blood pressure. They'd rather just stroke out or whatever, or not treat it right. And they're already trying to do some good things, but it's not working. Those people, this is a great natural intervention that has scientific basis. So that person's a great one. People in the statistical world, half the people that go on medications quit within the first year because of side effects and cost. So those people are a perfect market because they have the problem, they know they have the problem, but they quit because of side effects. And the side effects of blood pressure medications can be quite annoying. And so those people are, and then there's those people that just don't like the idea of drugs in their body.
Yeah.
And those people need to work with their physician to titrate. They shouldn't just go off drugs on their own. You know, they really need to work with their physician, because some drugs, if you go off in cold turkey, you can have issues.
Sure. Right. Well, and it sounds like with all the endorsements you have, it doesn't sound like if you go to your doctor, you know, and you have him, you know, collaborating with you on this type of a solution, he's more likely to be on board with it. He or she more likely to be on board with it and help you through this protocol, eventually, hopefully getting off the medications. Well, so, I mean, we're going to give everybody a link to the page here on this site, so you can go and read all the studies and all the supporting documents. Steve, tell us about, make us an offer. How, you know, let us know how we get it. What's the cost? Tell us all about that stuff. I know there's a guarantee associated with it. You know, we could go on, but it sounds like you've kind of made the case for what this tool is. Go ahead.
I'd like to add 2 different things that I think are important. You mentioned physicians. A lot of physicians don't know about this yet. Some do, some don't. If the physician's worried about this at all, which is rare. I mean, this is over the counter. People can do it on their own. But we have support and we have data for them. One of those physicians' stories is important. A guy named Ken Kronhaus, who's also a spokesman for the American Heart Association. He used it on a patient that he'd been treating for years and years and couldn't get to compliance. Okay, and 3 weeks after he gave a guy one of our units, the guy came back in. He's a radio personality. Came back in, and his nurse come running in and said, "Dr. Kronhaus, come look." Anyway, he went in, and his blood pressure was normal for the first time in more than 15 years.
Wow.
Okay, so sometimes these guys have to see.
Yeah.
Okay, so offer yourself as a test case. That's an important question. But one thing that happened in 2015 that was a major breakthrough that anybody could take to their physician is the Joint National Committee on Hypertension, which is sort of the gold standard. And JNC8 came out last year, and they put us for a lifestyle modification. They put this isometric exercise in. First time they put a device like that in ever.
Wow.
So that's the book. You know, we finally made the book. Okay.
Absolutely. Yes.
So that said, I want people first to know we guarantee your satisfaction, 100% satisfaction. We'll ship it to you. If you don't like it, ship it back to us. Don't steal out our chargers and stuff. Send it back, okay? But if you send it back to us, we'll pay for you for all the cost of the shipping to you, and that all you're out is shipping it back to us. 100% refund.
And what's the product cost?
It's $599, okay, which average cost of medications is over $1,000 a year.
Yeah. So this is paid for itself in the first year, just a little over half a year, right?
Well, what I usually tell people is it a good investment if you can get 30 or 40% return on your money? Then it gives you 30, 40% lifetime.
Yeah. Yeah. And my assumptions were you're coming off medication right away, but that's actually not the case. And I know that's not what you're endorsing or proposing. So, but ultimately it does. It is a really strong, good investment for someone to have a tool like this.
Well, and then the other things it brings to you, the other stories we get, and we should bring them up. Okay, some of the early comments from pilots. You'll know what a pitot tube is, right?
Yeah.
And that's where the air, goes into a rigid form and all that. So some of the most interesting early stories were pilots who no longer had sexual dysfunction. Their equipment was working again. Well, that's because blood flow was working.
Yeah.
Okay? So that works. The change in kidneys is interesting. There's so many things behind this that we don't know. We have reports from all kinds of areas. So, my encouragement to people is getting healthy in a natural way is good across the board. Has many fallout positions.
The blood pressure issue, we see this all the time, that it has spillover effects into so many other areas. They say that little hinges swing big doors. And blood pressure, one of those little hinges that has consequences all over our physiology and shows up in so many different ways. So if you get to the root cause of this, kind of what you're saying is that you're also managing all kinds of other consequences from high blood pressure that you may not be able to make scientific claims on right now, but at the same time what's happening because your marketplace is coming back and telling you that.
Yeah, it's exactly true. One other interesting area is we have more than a dozen reports now of people that were chronic migraine sufferers who've basically gone away from that. And it's typically not related to blood pressure. I'm not sure why there's a connection. Maybe it's the arterial flexibility. Maybe, I don't know. And I'm not claiming this fixes that. That's not what I want to claim. But,
right.
But what I'm saying is our body as a whole, you want to take care of it because there's lots of unforeseen circumstances.
Yeah. So there's again, to our audience, there's a link on this page. Please go ahead, read Steve's letter that he's put together. It's very well written. It's easy to read. Explains the science behind it. Tells you about the details of how to get the product itself. It's a great letter, Steve. So I just want to say thank you. This is awesome. Ever since we met, I've been wanting to turn our audience on to the work that you've done. And I know that you've just had some really big. You've overcome some big regulatory hurdles, and now just the fact that you've got the community behind you, the medical community behind you, and that's actually happening little by little. But you got a lot of the big boys on is really awesome. So this is a good time for us to do this. And I know our audience will be good to you on this on the reception of it. So thank you so much for telling us this.
And let's go fly together.
Let's go fly, man. I tell you, I don't know the statistics, but I know that there are a lot of pilots. I've heard this over the years. I've been flying for a lot of years, and I've heard that it's very hard to get an endorsement for your medical certificate if you've got blood pressure issues. They want to put you on medication. So I'm not just talking to the pilot community, but there's so many other areas in your life. If you can't get your pilot's license, you're basically not safe to have people's lives at stake, including your own. So if that's not an endorsement, man, that's just fantastic that you've got that.
Yep, I appreciate it very much.
Thank you, man. Please, our audience, go to the link below, check on Steve's letter, and good luck. And here's to your health.